It's Friday night. You tell yourself you're going to play for just an hour. After all, you've earned it. Long week, loads of stress, one good session and then bed. Then Sunday morning hits you sideways. You're stiff, your eyes feel like sandpaper, you haven't eaten anything real. Your phone says it's 9:43 a.m. and you're genuinely surprised because in your head, it's still Friday night. You didn't mean to stay up. You didn't plan to disappear. It just sort of happened. For some people, that sounds dramatic. For others, it lands way too close to home. I'm Phil Shea, addictions counselor, and I help people struggling with gambling and video game addiction. Versions of that story are far more common than people would think. Sometimes whispered, sometimes joked about, sometimes defended pretty aggressively. So today we're asking a question that makes a lot of folks uncomfortable. Is video game addiction real? Or are we just panicking about screens again? Let's break it down because the answer isn't clean or blurb-sized. First, we need to define addiction, avoiding caricatures or junkie under the bridge versions that still float around in most people's heads. Addiction is about a relationship between your brain and a behavior or substance that hijacks your reward system and increasingly starts calling the shots. It's about losing control, even when you can see the consequences stacking up in front of you. Drugs do this, alcohol does this, and habits can do this too. Gambling, porn, shopping, social media, and yes, gaming. Your brain doesn't really care whether the dopamine spike comes from a syringe, a slot machine, or a rare loot drop at 4 a.m. It just knows something worked. Something felt good. Something cut through the noise for a moment. So it asks for it again, then louder, and increasingly frequent. Health organizations didn't arrive at this conclusion overnight. The American Psychiatric Association didn't casually toss internet gaming disorder into the DSM for fun. It's listed as a condition for further study because clinicians kept seeing the same pattern repeat across countries, ages, and cultures. The World Health Organization went further and officially recognized gaming disorder in the International Classification of Disease, 11th edition. Was it because they thought gaming is evil and they hate fun? Obviously not. They included it because a subset of people were losing control in ways that looked eerily familiar to anyone who works in the addiction field. Their criteria are strict for a reason. Most people assume it's defined by playing a lot or grinding when new releases drop, but the definition is more concerned with persistence, loss of control, priority shifting, and continuing despite harm. The harm rarely looks dramatic at first. Sometimes it looks like slipping grades, missed deadlines, showing up late, skipping meals, dodging friends, or irritability when interrupted. That low-grade anxiety when you're away from the game, paired with a strange numb calm once you're back in it. People often say, "It's the only place I don't feel like shit." That sentiment matters because for many people, gaming isn't a problem at the start. It often starts, like most addictions, as a solution, a refuge or pressure valve. A place where rules make sense and effort feels rewarding, where progress is visible, where identity is clear. You're not failing, you're leveling. When that solution becomes the only place you can breathe, things can get tight fast. Clinically, the patterns are what matters most. Preoccupation, withdrawal symptoms when gaming stops, needing more time to get the same effect. Failed attempts to cut back, lying about how much time you play, letting other parts of your life rot quietly in the background. When enough of those show up and stick around for a long stretch, we stop calling it a phase and we start calling it a problem. What makes gaming addiction tricky is that the damage is often subtle. Gambling leaves bank statements. Drugs leave track marks. Gaming can leave someone technically intact while their life slowly narrows. They're there, but not really. Physically, yes, but mentally, no. The UK's NHS Gaming Disorder Clinic exists because people began showing up in clinics. Kids were avoiding school, adults were losing their jobs, families were fracturing under something that looked harmless from the outside. One case that stuck with me involved a teenager whose gaming spiraled into constant anger. Not cartoon anger, real, volatile rage. Controllers smashed, doors slammed, parents walking on eggshells. Gaming wasn't the cause of everything, but it was the accelerant. Now here's where things get uncomfortable for the industry. Modern games are not neutral. They're engineered. Random reward schedules, variable payouts, loot boxes that behave suspiciously like slot machines, bright lights, rare drops, limited time events, and endless progression systems that always leave you just short of the next thing. This isn't accidental. It's behavioral psychology with better graphics. Researchers have been blunt about this. Loot boxes mirror gambling mechanics closely enough that multiple countries have debated regulating them. Surveys of young players show a majority describe them as highly addictive. that should give us pause. Your brain learns through surprise. When rewards are unpredictable, dopamine spikes harder. That's how slot machines work. That's how notification feeds work. And that's how certain games are so effective at keeping people locked in. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You're no longer chasing enjoyment. Instead, you're chasing relief, completion, the moment when the noise quiets for a second, which is just biology doing what it evolved to do in an environment it was never built for. I've heard stories that still rattle me. One goes like this. A guy would sit down on a Friday night and not leave his chair until Sunday. He used stimulants to stay awake, lost his job, missed seeing his kids growing up while physically being in the same room. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't stupid, he was trapped. Thankfully, most people won't reach that extreme, but addiction doesn't require catastrophe to be real. It just requires persistence and harm. Now, after that extreme case, let's be fair, most gamers are not addicted. Hell, it can actually be a harm reduction strategy, choosing games over worse approaches to coping. The prevalence of problem gaming is estimated to hover around a fraction of a percent, which still matters for those tens of millions of people globally. There's also a real risk of over-labeling, of slapping a diagnosis on boredom, adolescence, or grief. Critics are right to warn against that. We shouldn't pathologize joy. We need to acknowledge that passion is not pathology, and loving something deeply doesn't make it a disorder. Often, excessive gaming is a symptom. Anxiety, depression, trauma, loneliness. Gaming simply becomes the coping strategy that works best, fastest, and most reliably. So the question isn't, is gaming bad? The question should be, what job is gaming doing in your life, and what happens when you try to take it away? If the answer is panic, rage, emptiness, or collapse, something deeper is going on. Both the APA and WHO stress impairment, duration, and severity, which means there's a pattern that persists despite the drawbacks. This brings us back, once again, to the original question. Is video game addiction real? Yes, full stop. It's real in the same way gambling addiction is real. Rare, serious, and frequently misunderstood. It's easy to dismiss until you're sitting across from someone who can't stop even though they want to. If you're listening to this and feeling defensive, that's okay. If you're feeling seen, that matters more. And if part of you is thinking, I've been wondering about this for a while, I want to highlight that you don't need to wait until everything falls apart. It's better to work on it before it gets to that point. I work with people on this exact edge. People who aren't sure yet. People who are still functional but exhausted. People who want their lives back without giving up everything they love. If you want to talk, there's a link below to book a confidential one-on-one consultation with me. It's just a real conversation about what's going on and what might help without the judgment or baggage that often comes with it. Gaming should be fun. It shouldn't feel like a leash. If it's starting to feel heavy, reach out. You don't have to do this alone. I'm Phil Shea, addictions counselor, thanking you for taking the steps you need to live your best life. Have a great day.